MLA papers. In English and other humanity courses, you may be asked to document your sources with the Modern Language Association MLA system of citations. When writing an MLA paper that is based on sources, you face 3 challenges: supporting a thesis, citing your sources accurately, avoiding plagiarism, and integrating source material properly. Examples in this tab section are drawn from one student's research, Sophie Harba's research paper, in which she argues that state governments have the responsibility to advance health policies to regulate healthy eating choices. Supporting a thesis. Most assignments ask you to form a thesis or main idea and to support that thesis with well-organized evidence. Once you have read a variety of sources, considered your subject from different perspectives, and chosen an entry point in the research conversation, you are ready to form a working thesis, a one-sentence statement of your central idea. The thesis expresses your informed, reasoned answer to your research question. Research question: should state governments enact laws to regulate healthy eating choices? Working thesis: state governments have the responsibility to regulate healthy eating choices because of the rise of chronic diseases. After you have written a rough draft and perhaps done more reading, you may decide to revise your thesis to give it a sharper and more revised specific focus. In the name of public health and safety, state governments have the responsibility to shape health policies and to regulate healthy eating choices, especially since in doing so offers a large social benefit for a relatively small cost. The thesis usually appears at the end of the introductory paragraph. Testing your thesis. Keeping the following guidelines in mind to develop an effective thesis statement. A thesis should be your answer to a question and should take a position that needs to be argued and supported. It should not be a fact or a description. A thesis should match the scope of the research project. If your thesis is too broad, explore a subtopic of your original topic. If your thesis is too narrow, ask a research question that has more than one answer. A thesis should be focused. Avoid vague words such as interesting or good. Use concrete languages and make sure your thesis lets readers know your position. A thesis should stand up to the so what test. Ask yourself why the readers should be interested in your essay and care about your thesis. The body of your paper will consist of evidence in support of your thesis. It will be useful to sketch an informal plan that helps you begin to organize your ideas. After you have written a rough draft, a formal outline can help you test and fine-tune the organization of your argument. Use sources to support your argument. Provide background information or context. Explain terms or concepts. Support your claims. As you develop your argument, back up your assertions with facts. Lend authority to your argument. Expert opinion can add credibility to your argument. State your ideas in your own words. Anticipate and counter objections. Do not ignore sources that contradict your opinion. Citing sources to avoid plagiarism. In a research paper, you will draw on the work of other writers, and you must document their contributions by citing your sources. Sources are cited for 2 reasons: to tell your reader where your information comes from, and to give credit to the writers from whom you have borrowed words. Here briefly is how the MLA system works. The source is introduced by a signal phrase that names the author. The material being cited is followed by a page number in parentheses. At the end of the paper, a list of works cited arranged alphabetically by author's last name gives complete publication information for the source. In-text citation, David Resnick, and then you have the page number, 31. Then your reference, your works cited would be Resnick David, then you have the name of the article, Trans Fat Bands and Human Freedom, and then you have the name of the journal in italics, American Journal of Bioethics, Volume 10, Number 3, March 2010, page 27 to 32. This basic MLA format varies for different types of sources. In a research paper, you draw on the work of other writers. To be fair and responsible, you must document their contributions by citing your sources. When you acknowledge and cite your sources, you avoid plagiarism, a serious academic offense. In general, these 3 acts are considered plagiarism: failing to cite quotations, failing to include borrowed language in quotation marks, failing to put summaries and paraphrases in your own words. To indicate that you are using a source's exact phrases or sentences, you must enclose them in quotation marks, unless they have been set off from the text by indenting, such as in block quotations. To omit the quotation marks is to claim falsely that the language is your own. Summaries and paraphrases are written in your own words. A summary condenses information from a source. A paraphrase uses roughly the same number of words as the original source to convey the information. When you summarize or paraphrase, it is not enough to name the source. You must restate the source's meaning using your own words and sentence structure. And if English is not your first language, have copying the author's sentences by using the author's phrases in your own words without quotation marks, by plugging synonyms. In other words, when you paraphrase, you've got to use a completely different sentence while maintaining the meaning of the source's words. And even if you summarize a source, you still have to cite the source. You have to cite the source to give the researcher credit for his research. And when you integrate sources, you use sources as concisely as possible so that your own thinking and voice aren't lost. So you integrate your sources into the flow of your paragraph. You use signal phrases so that you signal to the reader that you're about to start an in-text citation. And so you can either summarize or paraphrase what the source says for it to flow within your paragraph. And your in-text citation should be no more than 3 lines. When a passage is lengthy, you want to condense a chapter to a paragraph or a paragraph to a sentence. So those are some of the reasons why you would want to summarize the information if it's too long, so that it can fit into 3 lines, so that it can fit into the flow of your paper. So using good citation habits is the best way to avoid plagiarizing sources and to demonstrate your responsibility as a researcher. Cite your sources as you write drafts. Don't wait until your final draft is complete to add citations. Include a citation when you quote from a source, when you summarize or paraphrase, and when you borrow facts that are not common knowledge. Place quotation marks around direct quotations, both in your notes and in your drafts. Check each quotation, summary, and paraphrase against the source to make certain you aren't misrepresenting the source. Provide a full citation in your works cited. And when you quote a source and you borrow the author's exact words, you must put them in quotation marks. When to use quotations: when the language is especially vivid or expressive, when exact wording is needed for technical accuracy, when it is important to let the debaters of an issue explain their position in their own words, when the words of an authority lend weight to an argument, when the language of a source is the topic of your discussion. Keep the emphasis on your own ideas. It is not always necessary to quote full sentences from a source. Often you can integrate words and phrases from your source into your own sentence structure. Use ellipses if you're not going to use all of the words in a source, or you're omitting some words in a source. Use your sources responsibly. And set off long quotations. When you quote more than 4 typed lines of prose or more than 3 lines of poetry, set off the quotation by indenting it 1/2 inch from the left margin. These are known as block quotations. Long quotations should be introduced by an informative sentence, usually followed by a colon. Quotation marks are unnecessary because the indented format tells readers that the passage is taken word per word from the source. This is known here when you have your regular paragraph or the part of the paragraph, and then you indent inside the paragraph. This is known as a block quotation because it has more than 3 lines. And I always encourage my students no more than 3 lines in an in-text citation. Otherwise, you have to do a block quotation, which for me interrupts the flow of the essay. But you can do it if it's absolutely necessary. When you include a paraphrase, summary, or a direct quotation of another writer's work, use a signal phrase. A signal phrase usually names the author of the source and the page number and provides credentials for the reader. When you write a signal phrase, choose a verb that is appropriate for the way you are using the source. So here you use a signal phrase to signal to the reader that you're about to start an in-text citation. So here is a signal phrase. I'm looking for it. Marion Nestle, New York University professor of nutrition and public health, notes that. That's a signal phrase. A 1% reduction in intake of, and the rest of it is some kind of in parentheses, okay? And then you put into parentheses the exact wording of whatever Marion Nestle said, and then you put the page number. Always have the author and the page number for MLA in-text citations. So here you have Michael Pollan, and it should be, so source with no credentials. Michael Pollan notes that. So when you say Michael Nolan notes that, that is a signal phrase. And that signals to the reader that you're about to start an in-text citation. So using signal phrases with every time you use any kind of numbers, you have to cite your source. So when you cite a statistic or another specific fact, a signal phrase is often not necessary. Readers usually will understand that the citation refers to the statistic or fact, not the whole paragraph. 75% of Americans are opposed to laws that restrict or put limitations on access to unhealthy foods. So here you have your in-text citation of less than 2 lines. Readers should not have to guess why source material appears in your paper. A signal phrase can help you connect your own ideas with those of another writer by clarifying how the source will contribute to your paper. If you use another writer's words, you must explain how they relate to your argument. Quotations don't speak for themselves. You must create a context for readers. Sandwich each quotation between sentences of your own. Introduce the quotation with a signal phrase and follow it with interpretive comments that link the quotation to your paper's argument. This I call pie structure. So P is the main point of your paragraph. I is your in-text citation. E stands for an explanation of that in-text citation in your own words. So if you follow pie structure, then all you need is one in-text citation per paragraph. And that's how you put the source material in context within the sentence, within your sentence structure. So here you have a quotation with effective context or quotation sandwich in response to critics who claim that laws aimed at stopping us from eating whatever we want are an assault on our freedom of choice. Conley offers a persuasive counter-argument. Laws are not designed for each one of us individually. Some of us can drive safely at 90 miles per hour, but we're bound by the same laws as the people who can't, because individual speeding laws are not practical. Giving up a little liberty is something we agree to when we agree to live in a democratic society that is governed by laws. So the student writer sandwiches a quotation between sentences of her own, a signal phrase in which she says Conley offers a persuasive counter-argument. So that is her signal phrase. And then she has, and then after she has after this block quotation, now Connolly goes on and interprets what she thinks, how this in block quotation relates to her argument. So that would be the E in explanation in 5 sentences. You've got your main point, P, then you've got your E, you've got your P, main point, then you've got your I, in-text citation, and then you've got your E, explanation of that in-text citation in 5 sentences, although for this example they only gave 1. And so that is also called a quotation sandwich, in which you sandwich your quotations between your ideas or between your sentences. So as Conley suggests, we need to change our either-or thinking. Either we have complete freedom of choice, or we have government regulations and lose our freedom, and instead need to see health as a matter of public good, not individual liberty. So using signal phrases helps us to avoid monotony. And so here are some example signal phrases. Michael Pollan, who has written extensively, as health policy expert Mello and others point out. Marion Nessel notes, bioethicist David Resnick acknowledges that, in response to critics, Conley offers a persuasive counter-argument. And then you could use these verbs in your signal phrases. So instead of saying David Resnick states, which is too repetitive, it is better to use a variety of signal phrase verbs. Acknowledges, adds, admits, agrees, argues, comments, compares, confirms, contends, endorses, grants, illustrates, implies, insists, reasons, refutes, rejects, reports, responds. And you can look up signal phrase verbs by Googling it and have your own lists. There's so many of them. I'm not going to read them all out, but you could always Google it for yourself. When you synthesize multiple sources in a research paper, you create a conversation about your research topic. You show readers that your argument is based on your active analysis and integration of ideas, not just a series of quotations and paraphrases. Your synthesis will show how your sources relate to one another. One source may support, extend, or counter the ideas of another. Not every source has to speak to another in a research paper, but readers should understand how each source functions in your argument. That's why you use it in a quotation sandwich. And you put it in between your argument so that your reader can see how the source interacts with your analysis. Before you integrate sources and show readers how they relate to one another, consider how each source might contribute to your own argument. So you can show readers how the ideas of one source relate to those of another by connecting and analyzing the ideas in your own voice. After all, you've done the research and thought through the issues, so you should control the conversation. Keep the emphasis on your own writing. The thread of your argument should be easy to identify and to understand, with or without your sources. And so here is an example of somebody's paper and their sources. When synthesizing sources, ask yourself the following questions. How do your sources address your research question? Have you varied the function of sources? Do you connect and analyze sources in your own voice? Is your argument easy to understand and identify, with or without sources? Have you used quotation marks around quoted materials? Have you made sure that the quoted material is word for word accurate? Did you use a clear signal phrase? Did you have a parenthetical citation follow each quotation? Is each quotation put in context? Are summaries and paraphrases documented with parenthetical citations? Do you know where the cited material begins? Did you use a signal phrase for everything? And if you didn't use a signal phrase, will readers understand exactly which facts are being cited? And so in English and other humanity classes, you may be asked to use the MLA Modern Language Association system for documenting sources, which is set forth in the MLA Handbook 8th edition. MLA recommends in-text citations that refer readers to a list of works cited. A typical in-text citation names the author of the source, often in a signal phrase, and gives a page number in parentheses. At the end of the paper, the list of works cited provides publication information about the source. The list is alphabetized by author's last name. There is a direct connection between the in-text citation and the alphabetical list. So when you do an in-text citation in MLA, you just have the author's name and you have the page number. And then when you have the the works cited citations, that goes after the last page of your paper. Whereas the in-text citations, the author and page number, that goes inside the text of your paper. So the elements needed for a works cited entry are the following. So this goes at the end of your paper. The author, the title of the larger work in which the source is cited, if it is contained in a larger work, a collection, a journal, a magazine, a website, as much of the following information as is available if you're on a website: editor, version or edition, volume and issue numbers, publisher, date of publication, URL, DOI, and so on. Not all sources will require every element. And so you just put in as many elements that's available for that source. So arrange the list alphabetically. For the first author, place the last name first, a comma, and the first name. For 3 or more authors, use et al. Spell out editor, translator, edited by. In titles of works, capitalize all works. Capitalize all words except articles, like a, and, the, preposition, coordinating conjunctions, and the to in infinitives, unless the word is first or last in the title or subtitle. Use quotation marks for titles of articles and other short works. Place single quotation marks around a quoted term or a title of a short work that appears within an article title. Italicize titles of books and other long works. If a book title contains another title that is normally italicized, neither italicize the internal title or place it in quotation marks. If the title is within the title, is normally put in quotation marks, retain the quotation marks and italicize the entire book title. Do not give the place of publication for a book publisher. Use the complete version of publisher names. And for university publishers, use U and P for university and press. Take the name for a book. Take the name of the publisher from the title page or from the copyright page if it is not on the title page. For a website, the publisher might be at the bottom of the page or on the About page. For a book, give the most recent year found on the title page. For a web source, use the copyright date or the most recent update date. Abbreviate all months except May, June, and July, and give the date in inverted form, 13th March 2017. If the source has no date, give your date of access at the end, accessed 24 February 2017. For most articles and other short works, give page numbers when they are available, preceded by PP or page. And usually the page numbers and the URLs are the last things that you see in a works cited citation. And that pretty much, and so your in-text citation is going to be your author name and page number. And then you use a signal phrase like according to. So that is a signal phrase. Or Burgess asks a critical question. And then you have the author and then the page number. And if you don't have a page number, then you would have paragraph number. And if you don't have a paragraph number, then you just have the website name. And if you don't have a date, you put ND. So that's the same as APA. No page number in citation. Usually that occurs in websites. Sometimes you don't even have a paragraph number. And if you have 3 or more authors, you say Blaine et al. Means and more authors. In other words, more than Blaine. And then you put in the page number. So author, page number, author, page number, author, page number. It's pretty easy to do in-text citations in MLA. It's I think much easier than APA, because APA requires a date. And MLA only requires the date in its works cited page at the very end. It doesn't require the date inside the inside the body of the in-text citation like APA does. So then if you have literary works and sacred texts, then you have different slightly different way of doing it. But basically your in-text citation will always be the author's name and then and then you can look through the MLA book, and the MLA book will give you all the different examples of how to do in-text citations and works cited citations. Okay, so in MLA we say works cited at the very end. We don't say references. References is for APA. And MLA is for humanities, and APA is for social sciences and business. And if you want to look up, you could buy the MLA manual, which has all of this, from which all of this comes from. Oh, here it goes. This is what I was looking for. Yeah, here. Okay, cool. So when you have the works cited, okay, so when you do the in-text citation, as I said before, that's the author page number. Now this part is what you do at the end of the paper when you do works cited, and you write where it came from. You have the author, title of source, title of container, other contributors, version or edition, volume and issue number, publisher date, and then the last thing you put in is the location. And if you're doing a database, you would have a DOI. Okay, so this is what it looks like. This is what your works cited entry looks like. That's why I kept scrolling, because I was looking for an example, a sample, And so here you have the last name first. So first you write the author, and don't forget to put the period after each one. Okay, so a lot of students forget that. So After the author name, you put a period, and then after the title of your selection, you put a period, and then you have to italicize the title of the collection, and then if you have an editor, you write edited by whomever, then you write the publisher, the year, and it's interesting here how in MLA the year is at the end, whereas in APA we put the year right here after the author. So if you're used to using APA, then you've got to deprogram yourself and remember to put the year at the end. So here, and then you have the page number last. So this is your works cited entry. And here's another example of a works cited entry where you put in the author's name, the title of the article in parentheses, then you have your italicize the journal title, and then you have the volume, the date, location pages, database title, and then location of your object, database object. So once you've gathered the relevant and available information about a source, you will organize the elements using the list above as your guideline. Note the punctuation after each element in that list. Don't forget your periods, okay? Because that is such a common error. So you will find many examples of how elements and containers are combined to create works cited entries so here's some more examples. So I'm not going to go over all of them, but they're pretty much the same in all of them. The year comes towards the end, you have the author name comes first, then you've got the title of the article, then you've got the publication, then you've got the year, then you've got the page number. So once you have that in your head, that's pretty much works cited. And then of course there is some variation, but you could always look it up. And also if you want to see what an MLA paper looks like, you can Google Diana Hacker sample MLA paper, and it will give you a sample MLA paper that has all of these examples, It will give you an MLA works cited page, and then it will also give you an entire paper of in-text citations so that you have a whole variety of in-text citations styles to choose from. And so this pretty much is pretty self-explanatory. These days, this is the most common one that I see because everybody uses the web more than they use printed sources. And so when I grade papers, this is the source, I would say, after the internet became popular, And then here you have the author name, then you have your title of the short work, title of the website, and then you have the date, and then you have your URL. And so that's it for article in a journal. Oh, this online journal, yeah, this is very, very popular. You have the author name, the article title, then you italicize the journal name or the journal title, the volume, issue, date, and then the URL. So if you have any questions, and don't forget to subscribe to the Professor H Writing channel if you really like this video. And then if you have any questions, feel free to email me at any time.